I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory Update 1.2. In this save, I'm using a few of the new game modes that have just been added. I need 100 times the space elevator parts to complete each phase. Each machine takes 5 times the normal power, and all the resource nodes are random, and so is their purity. In the last video, I finished my Packaged Turbofuel factory. Located in the Grassy Fields, this modular factory consists of this tower making the compacted coal, these towers making the majority of the empty canisters, and the main factory here, which is producing the final product of 333 1/3 packaged turbofuel per minute. I'll be back in this area soon to put a truck and train station so that I can start using the fuel. First, I need to add some more power to the grid. I've added geothermal generators to a few of the geysers, but there are many more out there, and that's just free power. Chances are that's still not going to be enough, and I'll need to convert some more oil into power with the good old diluted packaged fuel recipe. Today we start in the other corner of the Grassy Fields. I put together this temporary setup in the last video to crank out a bunch of smokeless powder, and it looks like we created a lot. First things first, let's throw down the equipment workshop, craft a rifle. And we can use this to take a quick look. Rifle ammo is copper sheets, smokeless powder. So let's replace that with an assembler. Throw down another container. Throw a bunch of copper sheets in the other one. Select our rifle ammo. You know we're going to overclock and sloop this thing. Oh, look at it go. We'll just grab a little bit now. That way we can reload. And then use my last Mercer sphere. This is a good use for it. Now I'm ready to go exploring. Make sure we just pin the rifle ammo so that way it's a little bit easier to grab more. Taking a look at the map, I have gathered a couple of the nearby geothermal. I've grabbed one over here, the 2 that are up here, the one that's down here, and then a few more that are in the Rocky Desert. But there are quite a few all over here that I just haven't gotten yet. Actually, if I turn on resources, I can see the geysers, so actually only the ones in the Rocky Desert are within range. That's the other thing I would like to do, is not get complete coverage, but I would like to throw down a couple more radar towers as I go. Alright, so I'm making my way out to the Rocky Desert, and then we're just going to make a giant loop of the world. Well, I was headed out towards the Rocky Desert, but up here in the red jungle forest area, I forgot there's actually 2 geysers right up here. I can actually build these from pretty far away. I could build that one, although I don't think I can build that one. And let's be honest, kind of want that slug that's down there. So I'm sure most of you know that if you crouch, you can sneak up on the hatchers. Well, it also works with the rifle. I can shoot them from a distance and they still won't open up. But the even better part is it still works with the jetpack. I'm crouching and flying towards them, and even if I get really close, it won't open up. The ugly truth with doing this is I am not going to make these super pretty. Ultimately, I kind of don't want the geothermal on my power grid, but right now they are valuable and I'd rather have them. But in the long run, I would much rather my power production be a much more constant number. But for now, this is pretty nice. Just some extra free power. I just added these 2, and now I came over to this area over here, added another radar tower, and this will be the 3rd one. Let's go ahead and stretch our power tower out. Be somewhere over here. Ah, right here. This one's kind of hidden. There's number 3. From there, I've gone pretty much due east, and now I know that there's some more geysers somewhere around here. So I think it's time for another radar tower. Look at all those resources. Oh, I went just past it. That's right behind me. There's number 4. Number 5. Here is the 6th and 7th one. Up here in the red forest, we have 8, 9, and 10. And thank you, daisy chaining. (11 and 12). Number 13. 14. 15, 16, and 17. And the swamp has number 18 and 19. To complete my giant loop and add the 20th geothermal, which is the last available one, we are right next to this one that I've already added. The one that I already added was a normal, and this right here is unfortunately just an impure. Doesn't add a lot, but it's something. At my peak before this, I was at about 70, then it dropped down to about 67,000 after I deleted a bunch of the coal generators. Adding all these geothermals has brought us up to about 71,000. That's a good amount of power to work with, but I'll be honest, I don't think it's enough. Now when I take a look at the map, I've got pretty good coverage. I'm still missing a radar tower here and probably another one over here. I've got pretty decent coverage. Well, it's a little bit of overkill and some overlapping in the middle there. With the nodes being random, this helps a ton. There is a lot of them, so it is nice to hide it when you don't need them. But just to bring those back real quick, we can double check, and at least where I have radar coverage, there are no unclaimed geysers. At least I'm now taking advantage of all the free power available on the map. But if I want to create some more, it's going to be with oil. These are the ones I've claimed so far. Still got a decent amount of unclaimed. If I want to use the ones in the grassy fields, I could probably try to squeeze them in next to here, but I would probably want to use this area, and I'd probably just start deleting these. And I would definitely be getting a lot more, but I would rather just leave those there for now. If I look at what's available up here, the ones close to everything else that I've built here in the Rocky Desert, that's a normal node, but there's complications with that one. We'll get to that in a later video. This one's an impure, so I could use it, but I would like to make a little bit more. If I head out this way, this lake is really convenient to use, and I do have a normal node. And if I zoom in here, we can see with the good old cartograph mod, I've got power towers all over the place. Using this lake to add some more temporary power will be pretty convenient. I wanted to make a quick pit stop here at the Grassy Fields to switch up the temporary setup. I've got a few thousand rifle ammo. I don't have the best aim, so I can actually chew through that pretty quickly, but it'll last a little while. Let's go ahead and add another one, and I was able to gather a few more Mercer spheres while I was out wrangling geothermals. But the next thing I want actually can't be made in the assembler, because of course not. For this, we get to upgrade to the manufacturer. I already unlocked it in the MAM. I want to make some explosive rebar. Obviously, these are a bit more expensive to make than just making regular Nobelisk. These are just so much easier to use. And especially if you're trying to blow up anything at any reasonable range, it is so much easier with the explosive rebar than trying to hug Nobelisks. Now that we've got more power, let's use a bunch of it up. But remember, it's just temporary. Alright, so we've got the smokeless powder. Now let's grab a full thing of steel pipes and rebar. Throw the steel pipes in one, rebar in the other. Even though it's temporary, it feels weird to have it just floating here. That's better. And when I look, oh, I actually didn't make a dent on my smokeless powder. We're still making some. Cool. When I come back, I'll probably switch this back to rifle ammo. I'll probably chew through more stacks of rifle ammo than I will the explosive rebar, but I am definitely going to take good advantage of this stuff. In fact, now that my dimensional depot has refilled, let's go ahead and empty it again. That way this can run for just a little bit longer. Alright, so now I'm going to head out to that lake in the middle of the map, and we're going to build some more oil power. Right next to one of the geothermals, I can't remember which number that one is. We look this way, we've got a nice big old lake to use. And because I'm going to use the same blueprints I've been using, being able to just build the whole thing on the water is just so convenient. Normally this area has a couple of crude oil nodes. I think all of these are normally crude oil. But thankfully, I've still got one over here. The pipe won't have to go too far. If I look at the compass here, notice this is north, which means that right there is west. Which means Coffee Stain decided not to make this super easy. I could probably make it work and stick to the world grid, but if I go just ever so slightly off the world grid, it would be a whole lot easier to just go in this direction. Normally, I really like to stick to the world grid because it just makes connecting one factory to another with your logistic network so much easier. But I'm not going to connect this to anything. I just need this power to get me through the rest of this phase, and then I'll have access to so much more power, I'll be able to just come back and delete this. So let me clear out a few hatchers and place a few foundations, and we'll go from there. If I've done my math correctly, this should be just enough space. We got my to-do list ready to go. Let's spam down some blueprints. We want this lined up just along the edge. Now throw it in Blueprint Auto Connect, and let's finish this half. First one for this side all lined up. Everything looks good. And then 8 more to go. There is all of the refineries and packagers I need. Now I can queue up 16 of the fully overclocked fuel generators. And now I just need to pair these up. 1 down, 15 to go. The last major part is the water extractor. If I hold control, it'll snap next to the blueprint right there. And that should be in the perfect spot. Terrific. So now let's change our color. Yeah, it looks good. And let's double check. Each one of these needs 50 water. Okay, so let's just underclock this to 50. And now I can copy and paste, and they'll all be the right color and clock speed. Run away! No, not this way. You are the worst. Okay, usually you're good at running away when I shoot you. Alright, everybody. I think you're just gonna have to look away.
What made you look at that poor animal and decide it deserved pain?
Don't be like that, Ada. Now I just need to go around and make a few connections, but these should all be able to just plug straight into there. And then just a tiny bit of tidying up the built-in pipes. Put the middle one right there. And the polymer resin is all going to be coming out of here. So for this, I'm just going to add a few more foundations. Now I can throw down an awesome sink. Throw a lift onto there. And that will take care of my polymer resin. And then over here, I'll throw down my priority power switch. All that's left is a few more pipes, a few more power cables, and then to get a pipe from that oil extractor over to here. So just give me a second. Welcome back. And the beans still haven't learned the lesson and keep wandering into gas clouds. Such little brains for such big creatures. I only had a couple things to do, but I actually did them in an order that made more sense. I set up the oil extractor and ran the pipe over to the power plant, and got that connected to the main power grid. That way the pipe could fill while I was working on everything else. The pipe just heads around everything, and that way I didn't have to go up and down too much to make things just a little bit more simple. Now I've got all of the pipes in. And at the very back, the pipe and the belt are connected to complete this whole loop. And this is well, I guess the fourth one of these that we're turning on. So right now we've got about 11,000. Let's see what we get up to now. These really don't take long to start up. Looks like that was the last little hiccup, and we're staying pretty consistent now. Terrific. Now I've got about 18,000 megawatts to play with. That I can work with. With this much available power, now I can start working on the space elevator parts. As I've mentioned before, I'm going to use my new road and rail blueprints here to be able to move the parts that I need going from the grassy fields out here to the rocky desert and vice versa. Because there's just not enough resources in the grassy fields to keep building all my factories there. So a lot of the things that I'm going to be building are going to be out here. But before I jump into one of those projects, I want to take care of another thing in the grassy fields. I have my two big permanent factories here in the grassy fields. This one is making 400 plastic and 500 rubber. The blue and red one is making a whole bunch of packaged turbofuel. And my plan for this area is a truck and train station. I've already got the road leading right to it, so now I just got to figure out how I want to use this space. I plan on squeezing in a few of these truck stations, so I think it would be best if I could just come up with a blueprint. So I've got my Mark II blueprinter here, and you'll have to forgive me, but I think this will just make things a little bit easier. I do have the pack utility mod, and so I am just going to fly to build this. I think it'll be a little bit easier to follow if you have a better vantage point while I'm flying. Soon I'll get a hover pack. Alright, so let's start with a truck station here. And we're definitely going to get the docking thing right in the very middle. But instead of the truck docking at the very center, half a foundation over. That little box is where the docking animation will happen. Now I'm going to take my steel wall and I'm going to nudge it, I think 4 meters, right to the half foundation mark. And I'm going to zoop these across. 3 foundations of a height is what I'm going to work with. Now I'm going to grab some of the outer corner quarter pipes. Go with one here and one here. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now I'm going to use the extensions to lift this up by one more. And then I'll top it with the inverted outer corner quarter pipes. I like using the fix-it foundations for things like this because you can color them pretty much any color you want. Compared to concrete, they're just much easier to get the color that you're looking for. And then here on this backside, I am going to use the quarter pipes to kind of extend this little ramp thing. And then the inverted corner pipe on the top. And then the good old half foundation just fits nice and snug right here. Let's get these colored correctly. All right. I like the way we're starting off. So my idea with this is actually this one right here is going to be a door. Let's make it a steel wall. And let's just replace that. So now when you come in here, the lift will just snap to it, but we'll get to hooking these up later. So what I'm going to do is copy about half of this. Now the truck has plenty of space to be able to pull in here. It'll dock right there, so it's still got plenty of space on this side. Yeah, I like that. And then it'll be able to pull out. But I actually think, instead of blocking all this off, what if we created a little window? But instead of using the windows, let's use just the good old frame walls on either side of this thing. Yeah, I like that. And now I'm just going to take a 1 meter foundation. We're going to zoop that across the top. Now for the hookups. I think it's just going to be easier if I just do this. Now I know exactly where they're popping out. So I'm going to place my floor hole here, here, and here. Now I know this one is for the fuel, so I only have to deal with the one. These both have the option to have 2 inputs or outputs. Now I'm just going to delete all of these. I'm going to grab myself some signs. Normally when you go to place a sign, it's going to have the little stand and it's going to be just upright and you can select how tall you want it to be. But if you want it to lay flat, just hold Control. And then you can place it on the top of a foundation or on the bottom. And now I'm just going to add some labels to these so I'll know which one is the input and which one is the output. Alright, so now we've got a pretty good blueprint. We'll just need... I could daisy chain these, but might want to have just an actual power connection. The idea here is all the truck stations are going to be down here, and then above that will be the train stations. So the train is going to have to ramp up a little bit higher than what it is right now, but I think that'll be the best way to do this. And if my logistics floor is up there, it would be nice if I didn't have all of my cables down here. It'd be nicer if I had them up here. But I don't really want a pole right there. So here's another trick if you want to do your cabling on the ground. Just place a beam here. If I want it to be right here at the end of all the foundations, I'm just going to attach it to the top of the beam, hit H to lock in place, hold Control, and hit page down. And that will nudge it the 0.5 meter down. Now it looks pretty normal. I can delete my beam, connect from here to there. And now I can run my power along these and it'll just run along the floor. Just a minor tripping hazard. Maybe I can add watch your step signs all over the place in here. All right, so I may have to change the direction on some of these, but it would be nice if it was included in some of them at least. So there we go. Now we have at least part of the path. It'll be a little bit easier to connect everything. And when you do this, you want to have at least, it doesn't have to be this big, but you do want a section to be just kind of on its own for the truck station. And that way, when you're connecting it to anything else, it won't include that section in front of there as part of the intersection, which I think should make everything run a little bit smoother. Let's see how many of these blueprints we can squeeze in here. But I don't want to put them too close. Let's line this up with the edge of the road, I think. See if I give myself 2 foundations there. Ooh, only one on that side. Probably want a little bit more. So I've got the right-hand drive, so if they're going to come in this way, I could have them go like right down the middle and then either split off to either side. And then on this side, they would pull through, continue that way, make their way around the edge, and then come out this way. And then the ones on this side would go through there and then pull out this way and then continue on the road. Yeah, I think that would work. May have to play around with the spacing, but I think that should be good. I don't think any of the paths will actually take the trucks down in between the truck stations, so I could put them closer together. I think it'll just look better if I have them spaced out that extra foundation. If I slammed them up next to each other, I might be able to fit one more, but I don't know if that's worth it. I guess that's the cost. I probably could fit one more in here if I decided not to. Although I would have to extend this a little bit more because the trucks will need to go through here. I think just 2. Unless I want to get rid of the tree, but I'm going to keep it. 6 truck stations seems like a pretty good start. I forgot to mention it, but I added some label signs. So there is just a painted beam behind here to make it a little bit easier. To do that, I just start at the bottom, go up to the top, and then you just scroll the middle mouse wheel 3 clicks. 1, 2, 3. And now it's at like a 45-degree angle, and it makes it a little bit easier to place the signs so that you can get them on both sides. Helps light up the place a little bit. So now we've got our universal vehicle path, and we're going to put it in straight mode. Have it come to here, and now it's going to go through here. Alright, so I want to try to make the turns as short as possible so that these intersections are just short. So we'll just go to the half foundation mark on here. I don't really know which way is best to start, but as long as it all connects. Oh, that's right, so we're going to have to swap these ones around. There we go. And then we also want to make this one not too long so that that part of the intersection is nice and short. Come to the halfway mark here. Alright, so we've got all of our paths leading into the truck stations. Now they just need to figure out how to get out of here. So we're going to go like this. Yeah, we'll just go to that half foundation. Ah, there we go. Sometimes you just got to play around with it a little bit, but I got it to make that turn that I was looking for. And now come back down this way. Curve next to this one, and then the other 2 are going to meet up. And there we go. So they will come in, drive down the middle, split off to the appropriate truck station. These ones will pull out, go to the very end, come back around, and end up back on the road. I wouldn't be surprised if there's better layouts than this, but I think this will be fairly functional. Remember, I haven't used trucks a lot before this save, so this is a learning process for me too. So now I just need to fill in these gaps, and then to figure out how tall I want to make the logistics floor. I think if I can fit an industrial storage container, because there's just going to be times where I'm going to need one. And you know, every once in a while, I want a belt to be able to run over this, and it would be nice if those didn't go all the way to the ceiling. It's just nice that it doesn't create a giant blockage when you put one of these in. So it would be really nice if I had this much clearance. Alright, so it looks like I need just shy of 3 foundations of height. Let me get the next layer of foundations placed. Now I've got the train layer. Instead of making all of it fix-it foundations, I decided to swap those middle ones out for the glass foundations. I thought it would be neat if you could see some of the belts running overhead, and when you're downstairs and the trucks are actually driving through, they actually give a bit of reflection for all the lights that I've added. Which once I add even more walls, I think it'll help make it look not so dark in here. Now that we're up here, fly is just going to be a little bit easier again. So here's my thinking. I'm definitely going to have to play around with the spacing, I think. But I don't need very big train stations. What this is mainly going to be for is to be able to take the packaged turbofuel somewhere else. The trucks are great, and I really could use them to probably get the packaged turbofuel anywhere over the world. But if later on I want to use a whole bunch of trucks in between factories out in the Rocky Desert, or especially the Dune Desert, if I want to use trucks to move things around out here, I really don't want to be using the truck to take things out there. Even though the trains are pretty expensive as far as power goes, they have one huge advantage for situations like this. Most of these are probably only going to have one freight platform, and I imagine probably only going to be able to fit like 3 probably in here. But just to give you a quick example, say we've got our locomotive and our one freight car. This is going to pick up a whole bunch of turbo fuel. And unfortunately, this is the first train station. So normally it would be this one and then out to, we'll say, the Dune Desert, right? On the Dune Desert one, I am going to press this little cog wheel. By default, all the trains are set to one load or unload has been completed. And that's when the locomotive will leave the station. But you can switch it to freight wagon is fully loaded or unloaded. Now you do need to keep in mind that when you set it like this, the locomotive is going to stay at the station until this. This means that if you were using this train station for more than just dropping off fuel, it is going to tie up the station, meaning no other trains will be able to use it for probably quite a while. So when you're using that setting, keep that in mind that you're probably going to want to make it so no other train is going there. But for that same reason you want to be careful is the advantage to doing it this way. It's just going to sit at the train station, and because the locomotive isn't moving, it's not using any power. The train station, when it's connected to the grid, is just always going to consume 250 megawatts. The freight platform is only going to use that 250 during the docking animation. So by taking advantage of that setting, I'm going to be much more efficient with my power when I use my trains. If we look at the train station right now, just the train station, one freight platform, and the locomotive, the max consumption is over 1,000 megawatts. Pretty impressive. Now I've got to figure out how to bridge this gap, and that's going to give me a little bit of a better idea on where I can put these things. It would be nice if I could use the 1 meter ramps to get up here, just because the 1 meter is just going to fit and I don't have to do any weird transitioning. But that's going to make things complicated for the trains leaving, so I don't think that's a good idea. I could push this back, but they're all spaced out so evenly. So I think I'm just going to use the 2 meter ramp because that ends up working out kind of perfect right there. Then I am just going to extend the train station part over this section of the road. Now the trick to this, to making it not look too weird, is I need to redo that last section. So we are going to bring them to the half of the foundation mark. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here. The rail line needs to be at least 1.5 foundations. So we're just going to have half of it hang over. And now I'm going to connect my rails. And we're just going to delete these. And that looks pretty smooth. I think I would like the rail line to run 1 foundation in. Like down this way. I think I'd like to bring that one in a little bit more. And then just 1 freight platform. Now let's connect this side. And can we do this? This side I need to switch up. I don't have quite enough space. So instead of starting at the one foundation and going to the half, I'll start at the half up here and go to the end. And there shouldn't be too much of a difference in the way it looks. It's ever so slightly different. Let's see, but now if I go 1, 2, 1, 2, okay, so we'll have to redo that one. 1, 2. All right. Okay, so now I got the spacing worked out for 1. Now it's really easy. Just need to give myself enough space in between each of these train stations. But I don't need a lot of space. So let's just give them 1 foundation because I've got a whole logistics floor underneath. And I think up here we are just going to cover over that. So now the tree is saved. It's just not going to get a lot of sunlight anymore. Now I just need to duplicate what I just did, connect a few rail lines, and I'll be right back. And just like that, I've got 4 train stations and all the signals in. Everything should be able to flow through here nicely. Obviously, I can't leave this looking like that. Now it's time to add some walls and windows and maybe even a splash of color. The save is currently at 155 hours. I don't imagine I'll spend too much time on the decorating, but let's see how long it takes. And then I'll give you a quick little tour. Welcome back to my new Grassy Fields transport hub. The save is currently at 157 hours and 38 minutes. Alright, let me show you what I've done. I placed a miner here really just to make sure that I still have access to this node. And thankfully, just enough space. I added a few windows to the side here. Although, just like inside, it's really just a big open hole and some frame walls on the inside and the outside. But with these, I added the large billboard on the top and the bottom, and then just the regular small billboard on the 2 sides. This way, it's bright white, and at night, they're really bright white. The floodlights aren't exactly cheap to run. Sometimes you just have to adhere to the rule of cool, as the kids say. And I thought adding a whole bunch of floodlights was just going to be worth it. Back to daytime. So around the windows, I thought just to kind of break up the monotony of his solid black wall, I just used some braided cables to kind of outline them. And I was able to save the tree. It's just kind of hidden back here, but it's still there. Probably one of the only trees in the grassy field left. To create a barrier but still let me see through most of it, I used a whole bunch of the construction fences, and they actually snap on top of each other pretty nicely. But it looks a little bit funny, in my opinion, when you just have them stacked. Just because when you look at it closely, you've just got that part that sticks out so much, and I just wasn't crazy about that. But the good old rounded concrete beam hides it pretty nicely, and painting it the chrome look, I thought gave it a pretty nice barrier all the way around. I've got railing here that I can easily get up and over all of the train tracks and be able to access all of the train stations pretty easily. And if we come to this side, we've got a light control panel. Normally, I would pair up the priority power switch with the light control panel, but I can't really think of a good reason why I would want to leave these kind of logistics hub behind a priority power switch. They do take up power, and so it would give me the option to turn them off, but I can't really see a reason why I would want to. Since there's no way to switch these off into standby, if I wanted to save the power, I would just have to disconnect these from the rail line basically. But as of right now, I am kind of wasting power having all of these train lines connected and not using anything. So if I end up being close at any point, I could easily save 1,000 megawatts just by disconnecting these train stations. That's not an issue now, so that is a concern for future me. Alright, now let's head downstairs. So we've just got some stairs that will take me right down here to the logistics area, where I still have a just random storage container that I don't need. Here's the entrance for the trucks. On this side, I'm using just a whole bunch of the big pillars, and by using the big pillar supports on the top and the bottom, it spaces them out really nicely, so it lets a good amount of the light in. And then I use some half foundations, which are actually ever so slightly clipped into each other. You can kind of tell with all the random Z fighting, but thankfully asphalt does a pretty good job at hiding it. And it kind of breaks up this centerpiece because the road doesn't need that much space. That just cuts through the middle, then goes on. It's kind of subtle, but if I delete this H-beam right here, it just looked kind of weird transitioning from the asphalt to the fix-it foundations and the light here. I think by covering it, it just kind of helps the transition a little bit more. I've got my patterns here. I thought about adding some arrows to go off to either side, but honestly, that felt like that was just going to be adding too much. Buddy, how do you get yourself into these spots? They just keep going. Some of them will pull through here, and then when they get to this side, all of these ones go through this way. And then head back out this way. I also decided to outline each of the truck stations with a bunch of the label signs, and then it kind of helps highlight the center path a little bit more. And then all the trucks just collect this way and head back out to the road. When it comes time to add the inputs or the outputs, I'm probably just going to clip them right through the wall. I would much prefer to actually add a wall hole, but if I grab the conveyor wall hole, it clips with the actual truck station, even though it's only clipping in, I think, at the very top, and it doesn't even stick through the wall at all. As soon as I try to nudge it into the box of the truck station, it won't let me place. If it really bothered me enough, or if you want to use this blueprint, I'll probably put it on the Google Drive. What you could do is move the truck station out by just another meter or two, because this has plenty of space. It actually has a little bit more room on this side. So you could easily move this over by 1 or 2 meters, and then that would give you enough room to put the wall holes, and that way you would get around the clipping. Here on the logistics floor, I've got lots of open space to work with. At the very end, we've got a lift. Right above that is the sink, but let me show you what's on the other side of this wall. Another big old opening. I have rerouted the turbo fuel, so I'll show you that in a second. That's coming into this logistics hub right here. And then I've got a smart splitter set up. Any is to the left, which is all of these industrial storage containers. Straight ahead is the overflow. And so once these fill up, then they'll get diverted over to the awesome sink. Right now, I'm just going to build up a decent sized buffer of packaged turbo fuel. As I mentioned earlier, the way I plan on using the trains is to have them fully load or unload, which means they probably won't run very often, but when they do dock here, they're going to take a massive amount of the packaged turbo fuel. I think it'll be easiest to handle those kind of fluctuations of not using any for, 30 minutes to an hour, and then all of a sudden a train pulls in and pulls out a few thousand. I can't imagine having a large buffer being a bad thing here. And I've got just so much room to do any load balancing I need. This right here is what we were just inside. I just had some fun with the quarter ramps and the patterns on the top. Inside the packaged turbo fuel factory, the awesome sink that was handling pretty much all of it is now gone. I have cut off the belt that's going to my own supply here. But that has 4 completely full storage containers and the dimensional depot attached at the end. I think that's going to last me for a very long time. So now the final product is all merged up right here. Goes around the whole factory. Once it gets to this random spot here in the middle of the wall, it pops out right between the U and the E. And then immediately has to turn because it's not quite lined up to where it needed to go. But I still like the way that it looks. And then it just heads off over to the logistics center. At over 300 per minute, it won't actually take very long to fill up all those storage containers, and they'll start showing up here at the awesome sink. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for being here. I now have geothermal generators on all the geysers on the map. I converted another 300 crude oil into more power. And I now have a functional truck and train station to be able to transport items in and out of the grassy fields. I know this one's a bit on the shorter side. The next project is going to be modular engines, and I wanted to keep it all as one video instead of splitting it up at an odd spot. I'm also working on a shorter tips and tricks video going over my road blueprints. I actually recorded most of it once already, but when I was editing it, I realized I just talk way too much sometimes, and I really need to keep it a little bit more concise. This video being a little shorter gives me some more time to work on that one. I really want to stick to my once a week uploads for this series, so that blueprint guide will come out when I can squeeze it in. That video idea was from a suggestion in the comments, so please let me know if there's anything else you would like me to cover in a shorter video. Thank you again for all of the likes, comments, hypes, and welcome to all the new subscribers. Next up, 30 modular engines per minute. So look forward to that, and thanks for watching.